I like to think that I know a lot of these little shady corporate deals going around, but I did not know that Bain Capital, i.e. Mitt Romney, owns pretty much all of the radical right radio stations that we're fighting with all the time here on our Webcast One live broadcast. We'll talk about that today. We'll also talk with Mike Owen with the Iowa Policy Project about Auditor David Vaught's report on state government mess-ups. And Clark Davidson, candidate for the Iowa House, will join us later in the program here on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage. Open Sesame is Des Moines' premier Lebanese cafe. This month, Open Sesame is offering an unbeatable lunch special on Monday and Tuesdays. Mention the Fallon Forum when you order anything on Open Sesame's delicious lunch menu and get the second item for half price. That's right, buy one, get one for half price. Open Sesame's pita wraps, salads, soup, and mouth-watering Mid-Eastern specialties will have you and your dining partner coming back again and again. Open Sesame at 313 East Locust Street in Des Moines' historic East Village.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I love my laptop, folks, but even more than my laptop, I love paper. I love to be able just to like tear it out and write notes on it and use my beautiful little highlighter to make it all yellow and stuff. It just feels right. I mean, I'm sure if I would be given the choice between a newspaper and a stone tablet and a chisel, I'd probably go with the stone tablet and chisel. I mean, a little bit slower, but still, it's the level of technology that I'm most excited about. We've got some interesting stuff to go over today. Clark Davidson, who's a Republican candidate for the Iowa State House, probably the only Republican candidate I know who sports dreadlocks. He'll be with us later in the program. And we'll also be talking with a farmer friend of mine, Gary Hosky, who brought to my attention that Bain Capital apparently owns everything. My gosh, who knew? Everything. So let's make Mitt Romney president and just solidify that link between corporate America and big government. But before we get to that, speaking of big government, we're going to talk with Mike Owen with the Iowa Policy Project about the state auditor's report showing a bunch of problems in state government. Mike, welcome to the program.
Hi, Ed. How you doing?
There you are, Skyping us.
Yes.
Look at how fancy that is. Hey,
Hope I'm not. Yeah, you talked about the old technology. I remember back when I was a State House reporter and sending my stories back to the Quad City Times by telecopier. So we're talking by Skype now. It's pretty amazing how things have changed.
Yeah, a little scary for me. Hey, anyway, so Auditor David Vout, a Republican, but a guy who I've always thought was fair and reasonable, released a report that if you read the Register's headline and the initial analysis, it looks like it's very damaging to state government. But as you look at the more detail, it looks to me like a lot of these problems, well, all right, the alleged embezzlement. It's hard to say that's not a bad thing, but the late credit card payments. I mean, who doesn't do that? Maybe even state government can screw up on that sort of thing. And some of the other small things that have been corrected that, small in the scope of state government's $6.5 billion budget. I mean, still a lot of money, but is this really that big of a deal? And what's your takeaway from this audit?
Well, I think it's a good question. First, let me say at the start here, I wanted to extend sympathies of our organization and a lot of folks to the family of Senator Pat Ward, who
just
passed away
this morning.
So I'm really sorry to hear that, and our thoughts are with their family. On the question that you asked, I really have the same take that you did. I think that, this wasn't necessarily one report. These are several reports that the auditor does of how state agencies are spending their funds and meeting the requirements that are put upon them by state law. And I think the way we look at these is we're glad he's on the job doing, checking into these things. That's part of making sure that our public structures are working as they should and that our taxpayer dollars are going where they need to go. Now, as you mentioned, these are a lot of things, and even by the auditor's comments in Jason Clayworth's story in the Register, that seems to be a lot of this is a lot of things that are not things for alarm. They are problems, and they are being corrected or have been corrected.
Now, some people, I'm looking at the article you're referencing, and Steve Falk with the Environmental Law and Policy Center in Des Moines.
Yes.
He says the auditor's findings show Iowans are getting shortchanged when it comes to compliance to current law. And he's referring to the DNR not doing an adequate job at overseeing our water quality, hog confinement issues. And we've certainly heard complaints about that from people who live in rural Iowa and are threatened with the hog confinement being put up. CCI has also talked about that. The DNR tends to say, I've heard this complaint from them before too, that they tend to say, well, we just don't get enough, we don't get enough funding from the legislature, so our hands are tied. But is that, are the concerns raised by the environmental community about that element of the audit legitimate, do you think?
I guess I can't speak to that element of that particular audit, but that certainly is a legitimate concern for environmental funding in this state. Like higher education funding in the state. There are several areas where the state has cut back, and to expect the level of services that we might have expected in the past for funding that does not keep up, it doesn't make sense. And, there were a couple of years ago, I recall, when the director of the Department of Natural Resources was Rich Leopold. Shortly before he left, he commented to the Register, I recall this from a story, that, you cut us, and then you come back and complain that this or that is not being done. This is what small government looks like. You can't expect the DNR to do all the things that we want them to do if you're not going to provide the funding. And environmental spending is one of the areas that has not kept pace in our state with what is necessary to do the job. Let's keep in mind here, this is also, this is on the part of some people, not on the part of everybody, but on the part of some people, this is exactly what they're trying to accomplish. They are trying to shrink our public sector so that the public sector doesn't work well. And then they want to turn around and complain about the public sector.
Right.
And this is a political strategy. And we have to, when we look at the numbers, you can see that this is what's going to happen if you don't provide the funding for the services that you want.
Right. Now, there certainly are areas, at least in my experience, in my opinion, there are areas where government oversteps its bounds. And I can probably think of examples in the area of natural resources. But closer to home, what I run into all the time here in Des Moines is a city government, and in some cases, city government acting with requirements and mandates placed on them by state or federal government, requiring businesses to do ridiculous things, requiring fees that are exorbitant. I mean, for example, I know one small business, a restaurant, $1,600 a month for $1,600 a year to renew their liquor license. You know, I mean, little things. Those are the things, in my experience, that get people frustrated about government, and then they paint the whole thing with this brush of, well, it's too big and it's too invasive. I mean, your point is right on, though. I mean, we can't just paint the whole thing as inadequate or overreaching its bounds. We have to look at each situation. And I think in these cases, yeah, don't we want the DNR to protect our water? Don't we want to see you know, kids who need special education getting that attention? Just a couple of examples.
And as I said in the story, Jason was kind enough to quote me. What we see when these things are pointed out and are getting corrected, that's what we want to happen. That's, you know, so the fact that the auditor is on these things and is pointing them out so legislators can do something about it, so agency people can do something about it, that's what we all want to see, because every dollar that's spent in a way that is not appropriate is a dollar that can't be spent for something that is appropriate, or in some cases saved, of course. But I think what we've also seen, as we've noted many times, you know, the argument has always been over the last several years, we can't afford to do this or that. And so we want to make sure that when the money is available, as it is to these agencies, that they are spending every dollar wisely. So
are there things that you think the auditor's office should be doing to investigate the efficiency and accountability of government? Is there anything the auditor is missing and failing to accomplish here?
Well, one of the things we have looked at for many years is the issue of tax credits and other tax expenditures. Money that is spent by the state of Iowa, really outside the appropriations process, but is spent in terms of an impact on the bottom line with every impact.
Such as?
Well, the research activities credit is a favorite of ours. That's something where this credit was created back in 1985 with the idea of incentivizing small startup entrepreneurial operations. And instead, the biggest beneficiaries of this credit every year are outfits like, and in good companies, but companies like Deere,
Rockwell Collins, I believe, your way.
Collins, Pioneer, DuPont.
I mean, I could use some research money here at the Fallon Forum. You know, I got to figure out what to talk about on my show every day, dig into the issues a bit. I could certainly use some of that. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Try it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But, you know, in this, again, we've never really seen a good analysis of that from an auditor's standpoint as to whether that is actually being spent in a way that makes public sense. Now, maybe that's not a job for the auditor, and maybe that's a better job for the legislature, which did set up a few years ago a system in which it's supposed to review a set of tax credits every year. The research activities credit was one that they were supposed to look at last year. There's a committee that looks at these things. Nothing's come of it. And that was also part of the problem with the law that passed, is that the legislature did set up these credits to be looked at, but they didn't say, okay, if they actually had to have a finding that this credit was doing what it was supposed to do, or it's spending more or less than it needs to do to accomplish the job. There's really no teeth in the law.
My take is that that's by design. The legislature does not want accountability. They want to be able to dole out money to whether it's the research tax credits or all the other public monies that get doled out. In the most recent case, the $251 million, $250 million to one Egyptian fertilizer company. They want to be able to do that without accountability. Every once in a while, yeah, they'll agree to clawback provisions where if that company doesn't reach the goals that it says it's going to accomplish in terms of job creation and wage level, then they'll, quote, claw back that money or some of it. But they don't want to do that, and they don't do it very often. I mean, there's a case in point right here in Polk County. Wells Fargo is coming about to the end of its $10 million Iowa Values Fund grant. Now, back when the Values Fund was set up, $10 million was I think that was the first grant given out under the Values Fund. It may also have been the biggest grant. And that was coupled with another $74 million in public monies to Wells Fargo here in central Iowa. And, you know, they really they have not done kept their commitment on job retention. They were talking about 2,000 jobs. Well, they let a whole bunch of people go. But the Economic Development Department, which was a public agency a couple of years ago when this came up, you know, they all they said was they were just keeping an eye on things. They weren't taking any action. So and now that you've got the agency now actually, how would you describe it, Mike? It's really almost a private agency right now, using public money without any accountability and without any public input. I mean, you had this deal with the Egyptian fertilizer company.
Right.
That was done and sealed and delivered in private. It was
That's
announced.
Right.
It was all decided and announced.
A real question, and you're getting to it there with the Orascom case, the fertilizer company, is who in the legislature had anything to say about how that happened? It really was overloaded on the executive side here that this money could just be given away in that fashion. I think it would be interesting to see what kind of a vote we would have had in the Iowa House and the Iowa Senate had our state legislators had an opportunity to vote on that subsidy.
Well, you may be more optimistic than me, Mike. I would guess that the legislature would have gone along with the privacy components. That it was back.
They might have gone. I guess, Ed, I think it's possible they would go along with the privacy component, but I really wonder if they were put to the test and their voters, their constituents, were looking at how they voted on that, would they have voted yes? And I think on the subsidy itself. And I think that would be a real interesting question. And the problem with a lot of the tax credits that we have is that this is not how these credits are funded. Instead, we get a credit on the books, and they basically become an open-ended obligation of the state of Iowa. There are some caps that have been put in place, but not on all credits, only on some of them. Mm-hmm. And we just really need more accountability. That's, getting back to the original question that brought this about was, of course, the Register story about the state audits. Mm-hmm. Really at the Iowa Policy Project and at our organization we work with, the Child Family Policy Center, together we have the Iowa Fiscal Partnership, and we really have been budget hawks on this issue of transparency and accountability in public spending. And so, again, we're glad to see where there are problems that they are going to be addressed. They are being addressed, as the auditor says, and that really there's no great reason for alarm. It's the auditor's own comments with what he's finding in here. Yeah. At the same time, there are other places that we have to keep looking, and we have to make sure that we are able to fund education, and we are able to make sure that our air and water are clean.
Yeah, Mike.
These are fundamental obligations of state government, and. Yeah.
And again, right, the problem there is you bump up against corporate interests that have another agenda in many cases, and also are very good about funding campaigns of high-ranking officials. Governor Branstad comes to mind, certainly key legislative leaders as well. They have another agenda, and that agenda often takes precedent over the public good, and we see that way too often. Mike, I want to thank you for joining us. I do one other quick question. We got to run here, but if the legislature and the governor continue to abdicate their responsibility to try to create more accountability in government programs, do you think it's a role where the auditor should step in and try to have a say in the matter?
I think his view would be welcomed as that of all Iowans. I mean, I think the more attention to these issues, the better. I think it can be a dangerous place where we think of the auditor deciding what is the best public policy, whether, for example, a tax credit is a better way to spur economic development as opposed to making sure that we have good assurances that workers are protected and so forth. But I think on the question of whether the dollars are being spent properly is something really isn't looked at with these tax credits.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that changes. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Mike is with the Iowa Policy Project. You can learn more about their work online. Mike, you guys put out fantastic reports that are, unlike Fox News, truly fair and balanced. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ed.
When we come back, folks, we're going to talk with Gary Hosky. Speaking of the that corporate government, confluence where big business finds itself in bed with big government, an example came to my attention this morning that I had not been aware of. Bain Capital apparently owns a lot of the same media outlets that are just lavishing praise on the Romney-Ryan ticket, while ripping President Obama and Joe Biden a new one. We'll talk about that. You can join the conversation at 515-244-0077, 244-0077, or toll free, it's 855-244-0077. I want to thank Brother Trucker, by the way, for kicking off this program with their wonderful tune, Downtown. I want to thank Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for helping to sponsor the show. And I want to thank Gateway Market for helping to sponsor the first segment of this program. Gateway is located at 20th and Woodland in downtown Des Moines in the Sherman Hill neighborhood, and you ought to check it out. Fantastic pumpkin and huge gourd display in front right now. That should lure you in because once you're in there, you'll find all sorts of great buys and a lot of local products, and a cafe that is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Check it out, folks, at 20th and Woodland, Gateway Market and Cafe. We'll be back in a few minutes on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
Host is a locally owned restaurant in downtown Des Moines that focuses its food and philosophy on embracing simplicity. The majority of Host's food is from local farmers who practice sustainable and health-conscious agriculture. Much of what you'll find on your plate is a familiar comfort food, presented with a modern and tasty interpretation. Host is open for lunch Monday through Friday from 11 to 2, and also available for private dinner events and special themed dinners throughout the month. So, check out Host at 13th and Locust in Des Moines.
With warm weather finally here, it's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
There is hope. Visit groundwire.net and chat now with a live coach for answers.
Oh my God, Becky, did you see her bumper? I know she's had work done. Just last week, she had dimples and stuff all over, and now look.
Yeah, dimples and stuff. Yeah.
I'm Jamie Lasher from Minor Wreck Express. We're here to help with all the dents, dings, and drama of car ownership. Call 278-0101 or visit minorwreck.com for details. We'll see you in the fast lane.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Papers Neighbors, bringing us back to our conversation here on the Fallon Forum. This segment of the show is sponsored by Reynolds Energy Solutions. And with me on the phone is Gary Hosky. Gary, welcome to the program. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy harvest day to join us.
Well, thank you, Ed. Good afternoon to you.
I know you're a member of the Iowa Farmers Union. I'm assuming you still got a bunch of stuff out in the fields.
I'm winding down, but I've got 20, 30 acres left.
Yeah. How's your bushel per acre harvest looking?
Well, it's way better than we thought. You know, with the dry weather we went through, it's been very good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I was. Nothing should surprise me anymore, but I was surprised by an email I received from you this morning, pointing out that Romney's Bain Capital owns Clear Channel, among other things. I mean, so basically, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, that ilk, they work for Romney.
Yeah,
I mean, am I overstating it?
No, the article says that Bain Capital owns their contracts. I was just, fooling around one night. It seems like we get flooded with these racist and political emails every day. Somebody must gin them out every night. So I thought, somebody's behind this, and I just started messing around with the computer, and I typed in, what does Bain Capital own? And up this pops that they own Clear Channel, and I thought, that's WHO in Des Moines. So I typed in who owns WHO, and it said Clear Channel, so I typed in who owns Clear Channel, and it come back Bain Capital and Mitt Romney. Those guys own it.
Wow. All right. So what else is on the list of familiar names that might be in the Bain Capital column?
Well, I don't have the list in front of me, but they listed about, 15, 20 businesses that they own. Amazed me, here in my area near Marshalltown, I count at least 3 that they own in Marshalltown: Burger King, Domino's Pizza, Staples.
Domino's Pizza, Staples. What was the third one?
Burger King.
Burger King. Oh, yeah, I got one right downstairs from me here in the Skywalk. I've never eaten there. I never will. But once in a while, I use their internet signal. Don't tell them.
Toys R Us and a number of other ones.
Yeah.
Anybody clicks on this, you go through it, you'll find
and that's not unusual for. I mean, I think it's atrocious. I think it ought to be a violation of antitrust laws. But it's not unusual anymore to see big companies like that owning lots of other businesses. I mean, we see it even in the organic food product realm, where you've got a handful of, big companies, even, Cargill, Coke, Pepsi, that own organic brand names that people assume, are produced by a idyllic little family living in the mountains somewhere. So this is not unusual anymore, but what disturbs me, that in and of itself, but what bothers me more than anything is corporate ownership of the media. I mean, it's not just like a media corporation. This is a corporation that owns a bunch of huge businesses and also owns the media that will either talk about why corporate domination of our economy is bad, or they won't. And they won't. We know they won't. I mean, you won't hear this talk on WHO. The only time I've ever heard I had a call from Simon Conway to come talk on his program was when I challenged Leonard Boswell the other a couple of weeks ago. They don't want to hear our conversation about Bain Capital being bad, or even some of the stuff Mike Owen was talking about state government you know, being the appropriate size to do the work that it needs to do to protect the groundwater, to protect the air, to regulate hog confinements. They don't want to hear about that. They're not going to have those conversations on WHO. Yeah, so
well, you know, big business is all about making money, Ed, and you know, the more you read into this stuff, that people see what people like Bain do.
Yeah,
money is their god. It's not the environment. It's not people, workers, or anybody else.
It seems like they won't be happy till they've got it all. I mean, I don't know what the limits of greed are, but I know what the limits of the Earth's carrying capacity and its resource base are, and you know, maybe they just want it all. What do you think?
Well, that brings up a good point, Ed. I have a DTN News Services, and last week, an article come out about the population growth on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it said by 2050 there's going to be 9 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
We will need to increase our food production by 70%.
Or we need to find a way to try to better regulate the population growth on the planet. But
well, the Obama administration, I did see, is cutting the price of contraception in half to these underdeveloped countries where most of this growth is occurring.
Heck, why not make the stuff free?
It's going to get to that. The amazing part to me on this, Ed, was that if you read on in the deal, it says American farmers who have been increasing productivity regularly might be able to step up to the plate and fill a lot of this void, but we don't have the infrastructure in place to deliver that much more grain.
Mm-hmm. Well, to get to the point of delivering that level of production, don't you need to genetically modify crops? Create basically, factory crop farms where you've got higher production, higher levels of yield. Are you ever going to get to that level with sustainable agriculture? And I'm asking that question honestly. I mean, I don't want to go there, but I also think that that's the argument that the folks on the other side are making, who regard exponential population growth as inevitable and even desirable.
Well, I think you're right about that. You know, if they'll do everything possible and be honest about the research, and they can research this and prove it to be, reliable and all right, I think you're probably right. That's the only way we're going to get to that production, where we're going to feed this many people. Of course, people will make the argument that these people start raising their own gardens and things like that. We'd go a lot further.
Can't hurt.
The point I wanted to make about this, Ed, is that the president, months ago, proposed to the Congress a jobs bill where he wanted to start rebuilding the infrastructure of this country, and it would have provided a lot of jobs. And the Republicans just stonewalled it, and now they want to talk about how many people are unemployed, how many people are on welfare, how much the jobless payments are. That could have all been reduced if they would have done what the president wanted.
Yeah, well,
and which would benefit the world in the long run.
It seems like the U.S. House is just the most partisan, divisive chamber I've ever seen in my life. Now, I mean, we've got a good example is the Farm Bill, and I wouldn't mind getting your take on that, Gary, if you have a second. In the Senate, a Farm Bill was passed with bipartisan support. It reached a brick wall in the House, hasn't gone anywhere. Republicans in the House are happy to eviscerate the food stamp program. They certainly don't like conservation programs, but they're willing to dole out, unlimited amounts of crop subsidies to big farmers. That's my take on it. Maybe you've got a better handle on the detail than I do.
Well, no more than what I read it. From what John Bonner's saying, he can't bring his people together. Some of them want more cuts, some of them want less. He's claiming he don't have the support to pass a bill, but I think it speaks to the importance they place on agriculture and rural states like ours. I think, just like this Bain Capital thing, they're too interested in the bigger money issues and the big people.
Yeah, and you've got consolidation is across the board in this country. It's not just in manufacturing or in information or insurance or healthcare. It's in agriculture as clearly as it is anywhere. And as you probably know too, there's this week is some call it World Food Prize Week. Others are calling it a Food Sovereignty Prize Week, and others are calling it a good week to go to the state capitol and World Food Prize headquarters and protest and maybe get arrested. So I'm curious, any take on the World Food Prize and what's happening here in Des Moines this week?
Well, I really don't yet. I can't speak with any authority on that, so I'm best just not to say anything.
Well, I admire your restraint.
Well, food's important to all of us. I guess I can say that.
Yeah.
And we don't want to, discount the fact that this Earth is growing by about 1 million people a day or a week, and we're going to run out of food if something is not changed.
Well, we're going to run out of planet, space, and other resources for people. So I really wish that seems to be the one issue more than any that we can't talk about: population growth. Something has to change. It has to be addressed. And I just to have that as a given, and then talk about the importance of higher and higher yields, and thus more and more GMO crops. That doesn't do it for me. It seems like we're punting on the real question.
Yeah, and we get into these arguments like we're seeing in the press where people are suing the president over this contraception and as a part of his insurance. But contraception's got to be part of the answer to this problem. We just can't have this continued, birth rate that we have and hope that our kids and grandkids are going to survive.
Yeah, that and addressing poverty. I mean, poverty relief is probably the best answer to stabilizing population growth. But of course, that gets in the way of Bain Capital's efforts to take over the entire global economy. Well, they've got Walmart to compete with, I guess, on that account. Gary, I want to thank you for joining us. Gary Hosky, folks, farmer from Montour, I believe, in Marshall County.
Yep, Tama County.
Tama County, okay. With the Iowa Farmers Union, and I appreciate you sending me that information about Bain Capital. Next time you listen to the Farm Show, folks, on or the Big Show, I guess it's called, on WHO, or Jan Michelson or Simon Connery, we remember who they work for. They work for Mitt Romney. Is that a good thing? I think not. Anyway, Gary, thank you again for joining us. Folks, when we come back, we're going to talk with a candidate for the Iowa House, Clark Davidson. I do want to thank the sponsor for this segment of our program, Reynolds Energy Solutions. And if you have not yet had an energy audit done, and even if you had one done like a year ago or even 6 months ago, this is a new program, and Tim Reynolds does a thorough job, much more thorough. I've heard from people who've had both the old-fashioned audit done, and Tim, he's more thorough than anything you probably ever had done. He'll find leaks and leaks of air. He'll find ways you can save money that you didn't even dream of, and it costs you absolutely nothing. The audit is free. You can contact him either through my website, fallonforum.com, or you can call him at 802-2801, 802-2801. The best approach to trying to deal with our energy problem is to use less, and Tim can help you do that. We'll be back in a minute on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going. Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. Well, now Proof is open Thursdays and Fridays for supper. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper, Thursdays and Fridays, and also the second Saturday of the month. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655. Hi, folks. Ed Fallon here. When it is time to entertain, think of Gateway Market. Let them handle the details. Gateway offers a wide variety of stress-free options like cut-to-order cheese and charcuterie. There's a delicious olive bar and a wide variety of chef-prepared dips and spreads. Or let the catering team take care of the entire event, right down to the wine and beer pairings. The expert floral designers can even customize the perfect centerpieces. So stop by or visit Gateway Market for more information. Gateway is at Woodland and ML King in downtown Des Moines. Good food, great entertaining.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Fallon Forum. This segment of our program is sponsored by Proof Restaurant. I want to thank Clark Davidson for joining us. You know, I've been trying to get candidates on the Republican and Democratic side, or other candidates who are running, to come on this program and debate. And I've had some success with that. I will admit in this case I did not invite your opponent. I wish you would have. Well, I just never got around to it. It's just the timing thing. And I got to tell you, though, I'm uncertain. I've not had a good track record of Joe Olson returning phone calls or responding to emails. She's been pretty poor at that. So anyway, you're running in a Democratic seat.
Yes.
Okay, and you're a Republican.
Yes, that's true.
The only Republican I know with dreadlocks, or dreadlocks in process.
You always try to zing me on that.
I love that, man. I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
But I read your platform. I got your flyer, and I mean it's good stuff.
Thanks, man.
It's good stuff. I mean, you're standing in solidarity with the Chicago Teachers Union.
Definitely.
That's also probably unique among Republicans.
It shouldn't be, but I think you might be right about that one.
Yeah, I mean, why would you say the Republicans should stand? I mean, Republicans tend to be adamantly anti-union.
I just think that the Republican leadership is so far removed from the neighborhood Republicans, or real people that are actually have conservative values. I think that conservative people really, really care about their schools, and there was a lot of talk even at the Polk County Convention about doing away with No Child Left Behind. So.
Yeah, Republicans support that.
They made it up, but a lot of Republicans actually don't support it. At the convention, there was a.
Well, but they support getting rid of it,
yes,
or changing it at least.
Yes,
yeah. And so do I.
Yeah,
I think No Child Left Behind has been a disaster. But you also support homeschooling.
Yeah,
which I support that as well. And I've always been a little concerned that Democrats seem to come out against that. Why not let a family educate their kids at home if they want to?
Right. I think it's their right to do so.
Yeah. Is that issue resonating? Well, let me ask you this, I guess. I'm kind of going through your flyer, and you've got a lot of stuff on one page here.
Yeah.
But what are the issues? Are you out door knocking? Are you going to forums? What's your campaign agenda look like?
My strategy, so to speak, is we've basically we realized that we're up against a corporate giant. She literally runs $70,000 local campaigns funded by Farm Bureau.
Her own campaign?
Yes.
Is that how much she's raised this time?
I'm not sure about her numbers this time, but in the past years, I've looked it up, and she does get a lot of handouts.
Now, she hasn't had a lot of, she hasn't had any tough campaigns since her first one against Betty Grunberg. Now, she beat a Republican first time around.
Mm-hmm.
But the Republican was almost certainly more progressive on a lot of issues than Joe is, I think.
Right.
And one reason she probably gets a whole bunch of money, and maybe you mentioned Farm Bureau, I'm guessing that's just the short list, is because she's the chair of the Appropriations Committee, or has been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty lucrative committee.
So more or less, I felt like if I came out strong in the very beginning, and she felt like I did pose a threat, that she could easily outspend me and outfund me. So I decided to just run a blitz at the very end in the last month, get out as much material as possible. We're attempting to tape one of these to every single doorway in the district.
That's a lot of masking tape.
It's a lot of tape and it's a lot of flyers, but it's still way cheaper than sending out mailers or doing auto calls or getting yard signs or anything like that.
When my first campaign, I only spent $6,000, and I hand delivered, well, with the help of volunteers. I think we delivered maybe 4 or 5 pieces door to door.
Wow.
It wasn't.
I kind of wish I would have done that. But.
Well, it wasn't every single door either. It was a primary, so it was targeted. But you can save a bunch of money doing that if you have the legwork.
Yeah.
So apparently somebody's got the legs, because I got one of these on my door this weekend.
Yeah, we've been running hard. I can tell you that.
Yeah. All right. So
I was an athlete in college and in high school, and my training's coming back in handy. I can tell you that.
All right.
Much.
So have you had any forums, any debates with Jo Olson?
No, I haven't. I would like to talk to her. In the beginning, there was just nobody running on the Republican side, which is simply why I did it. I didn't really, even take running a campaign seriously until more recently, when the Des Moines Register published a couple things, and some people came forward and offered some contributions and some legwork, and I was like, well, if we can, and looking at the numbers, there's about 3,000 Republicans and about 4,500 Democrats, depending on the year,
and the rest independent.
So really, I only need to, pull over about 1,000 people, and I'm right in the race. So looking at those numbers, I felt like, coming from a Republican background, but being very involved in liberal circles, that I felt like I could really put together a platform that both sides could agree on.
So, and describe that platform in a little more broadly. The homeschooling element obviously is of appeal to a certain part of the Republican base, but the and certainly your support of the teachers union would appeal to Democrats. But what's describe more broadly what you think the cross-partisan appeal might be.
Well, I think the cross-partisan appeal is that where do I start? Well, the cross-partisan appeal, first of all, is looking at energy and agriculture, which is something that I think the Republicans even push for subsidies in. But if you look at the platforms of both the Democrats and Republican parties, they've been calling for industrial hemp for over 10 years. And if you really get into studying industrial hemp, and we talked, with your last caller, you were talking about like needing to up food production. Well, the majority of our corn goes for ethanol, or it goes for cattle feed, or high fructose corn syrup. So first of all, I don't know if any of those 3 products really are like helping feed people. Even with the subsidized corn going to actually increase beef production, there's a lot of arguments if that's even a healthier way to go versus like fruits and vegetables and things like that growing in our fields. But with hemp, there's 2.5 times amount of product that's produced per acre. So literally
2.5 times as much as corn?
As much as corn, yeah. Okay. So in terms of producing ethanol, you're talking about 2.5 more times profit for farmers. but also you're talking about a cleaner environment because the pesticide and nitrates requirements aren't there. There's no need to have a genetically modified hemp out in the field, and it's great for cattle feed too. So,
but if Pioneer and DuPont can figure out DuPont and Monsanto, let's say, can figure out a way to genetically modify something, thus increasing their profits, they would do it.
Well, yeah, that's true.
but
That's
still,
not right.
But I had not heard that because I once sponsored a industrial hemp bill in the legislature, and there were Republicans as well. I remember a Republican legislator from Southwest Iowa was also sponsoring the bill. So yeah, there is interest, but part of it is it gets into the whole mystique of, well, this is marijuana, we can't allow the growing of marijuana. But I think also
marijuana.
Well, I know, but I think the deeper argument is it competes with other products that have control over, and have much more influence in the political process. Am I nailing it there?
You're definitely nailing it, and that's unfortunately the battle that we fight in our state government and our national government is just the corporate influence over politicians, which is why I felt like it was important to include on my flyer support of repeal of Citizens United and the proposed 28th Amendment.
Yeah, now that doesn't have as much support in Republican circles as, in my opinion, it should, because we all agree money's part of the problem. Well, I mean, maybe I'm missing it, but I haven't seen a lot of Republican support for that.
You're right, I think, but I think that's coming around because, first of all, in my caucus, we actually did get it on the platform.
Good.
And I tried to get it on the platform for Polk County, and a third of the people in the room were all about it, actually. And there was another third of the people in the room who they did the yays and the nays, who were yelling even more. Like, they were definitely getting really, really loud, So it was really hard to say. I felt like it was closer to 50-50, but, maybe the nays had it a little bit more. But I think when you realize that it's not very conservative to let giant corporations buy our president. I don't think anyone wants that to happen, or even to buy our state legislatures. That's not a conservative campaign, and it's not a conservative, idealistic.
Well, better yet, just let the corporate head himself run for president, Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a good point. Do you get any flack for? I mean, a lot of the things you talk about are fairly comfortable to folks on the Democratic side of things. So do you get criticism? And I didn't even know. Maybe you were a Republican already. I don't know whether you became one recently.
I really no. I registered as a Republican in 2008, and then just to go to the caucus, and then again in 2012 just to go to the caucus. Other than that, I don't really. I actually think that picking sides as saying, "Oh, I'm a staunch Democrat," or "I'm a staunch Republican," I think that is like completely detrimental to the political process. What we really need, what this community really needs, and every community in this country, is like for both people to sit together in the same room and to hash these things out, like Occupy Wall Street attempted to do. And that's the reason I was so drawn to the Occupy movement, is because there was that open forum where they're saying, "Hey, we don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal, you can come and participate in this open debate."
Now a big problem in any election, and probably this one, probably less so in 08, but right now I sense a lot of people aren't even going to bother to vote. And certainly you mentioned Occupy Wall Street. There's a strong element within the Occupy movement that say a pox on both houses, don't even bother to vote. There's one gal who's just all over the place organizing a boycott the presidential election vote. My impression is that you don't agree with that you think that it would make sense for people to at least vote. Maybe not for a Democrat or Republican in all cases, except in your case. But that's my impression, is that you would agree that the anti-voting element of the Occupy movement is counterproductive.
Yes, I do agree it's counterproductive, although I completely understand where they're coming from on that. It's like, why participate in a broke system, build a better system up around, the broke system and things like that. But I think that voting third party is really important. I'm going to be voting third party in this election. Although some days I almost vote for Barack Obama, I tell you, the more I listen to Mitt Romney, it's just like, it's funny. You go through these neighborhoods, and my parents claim to be staunch Republicans, although I think they're a lot more liberal than they would ever care to admit. But you go out in some of these rural areas where, I grew up at, and you would think that people would be flying Mitt Romney. No, they're not. I've actually never met a single person who's come up to me and be like, God, that Mitt Romney, he's a great guy. No one's ever came up in my entire life and said that to me. I think Republicans are disappointed with what they got. I think it's
and some for the wrong reasons. Some feel that he wasn't, conservative. Really conservative is the wrong word. I think Paul Ryan was put there to help appease that element of the Republican base. But yeah, I think. I'm disappointed in Obama, but gosh, given the world under Romney Ryan, it's an easy vote for me to support Obama. I mean, not so for Congress. I'm not happy with either Leonard Boswell or Tom Latham. You present an interesting, and you're in my district. I'm in the very edge of the district you're running in.
You're over in the Sherman Hill area. I didn't even realize that was part of the district, but there's a lot of people over there.
Yeah, I think it's only a corner of Sherman Hill. Sherman Hill's kind of divided into two districts, but small neighborhood. The line just happened to fall in the middle of the neighborhood. But yeah, you present an interesting option for people in the south central and southwest part of Des Moines. There's not a lot of diversity on the ticket beyond that.
Yeah,
I know that David Rosenfeld is running as a Socialist Workers Party candidate for Congress, and he'll be on my program actually later this week on Wednesday.
Cool.
But Green Party candidates, Libertarian Party candidates, their presidential candidates aren't even allowed anywhere near the debates.
Right.
It's just we have a two-party system, and the two parties are damn certain they're going to make sure it stays that way.
Yeah. Some days I almost feel like Mitt Romney is there to say the most horrible things possible to make Barack Obama look like a saint.
Well, he was doing a good job, and I would say that theory has some validity until the last debate. Romney. Objectively, I think he cleaned Obama's clock in that debate. Anyway, so the other, you're obviously you're about issues, which is why you're running.
Right.
Obviously, to get elected, you got to have some strategic, finesse as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're passing out flyers. You haven't had a chance to debate. There's been an article in the paper. You're getting a little bit of coverage today on my program. So, what else have you got planned over the next few weeks?
To be honest, that's it. I feel like I've personally signed every single flyer that I've handed out, and I
see that.
And I look at that as it's a contract that I'm putting on your door, and I'm putting on everyone's door, just the same way that it's an old thing called nailing, and we don't actually use a nail anymore. We use tape.
That's appreciated.
But yeah, sometimes some people have some pretty nice doors, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll just tape this on the frame. I don't want to mess up their woodwork over here, but
yeah.
But no, I think that putting a piece of truthful from the heart, call to action on someone's front doorstep is something that people haven't seen for a long time. So if it works or if it doesn't work, I don't know. But the important thing was with this flyering blitz that we're running here is that we're educating people about issues. And I think that when you read that, you're going to be tuned on to some major health issues that we're facing in our community with both the food supply, with the genetically modified foods, and even waterworks right here in Des Moines. And some educational issues. I don't think that people are really in tuned to how the No Child Left Behind has been skillfully manipulated into closing down public schools and replacing them with corporate entities.
Yeah, and more of that may happen unless we are vigilant.
And that's why I'm saying why conservatives would want to stand in solidarity with the teachers' unions is because I don't think conservatives want to have their public schools closed down and replaced with corporate schools.
Yep.
There's nothing conservative about that.
Clark, thank you so much for joining us. Clark Davidson, folks, if you live in the Sherman Hill neighborhood on west to 63rd Street and then on down south to the airport, if you live out at the airport, Clark is running for that legislative seat against Joe Olson. He's on the Republican ticket. Joe Olson on the Democratic side. Haven't been able to. Again, I should try harder, but I have in the past I've had very poor luck at getting responses from Representative Olson to phone calls and emails. Anyway, folks, thank you for joining us. Bradshaw will be with you at 1:30 today. Tomorrow We've got Bradshaw joining me tomorrow. We're going to talk the big picture and also looking at the debate coming up tomorrow night. Wednesday, David Rosenfeld. He's the Socialist Workers Party candidate. He's running for Congress in the 3rd District. And we'll also hear from a couple Irish actors in town here. They are performing a couple very thought-provoking productions in Ames and Des Moines later this week. That should be interesting. We'll also talk with Tom Gahagan, I believe I say his name correctly, and Ron Yarnell about the Taft-Hartley Act. Speaking of labor union issues, that's an important one. I want to thank Proof Restaurant for sponsoring this segment of the program. Proof is at 13th and Locust. You know about their lunch deals, fantastic lunches, but now they're open evenings, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for supper. I've had supper there 3 times now. It is an incredible experience, folks. For what you get, it is very affordable and exceptional. I've had some people tell me it's the best meal they've had in Des Moines, and I can tell you for sure, probably one of the best meals I've had in Des Moines. The chefs are artists, so do check it out. That's Proof Restaurant, open Wednesday through Saturday for supper, for dinner at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. Thank you for joining me on the conversation here on the Fallon Forum. Podcasts will be up and running later today. We'll be back tomorrow at noon on the Fallon Forum.
I'm just saying. 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 Ching ching. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Feeling alone? God knows and He understands. Chat now with someone who cares at groundwire.net.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. And he said not only would he like to be a sponsor, but he would